All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very pleased today to have Reverend Katie Calloway from Christian Temple Disciples of Christ in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 44. Please rise for the invocation.
Will you join me in prayer? Gracious and loving source of all that is, we gather in this esteemed assembly with gratitude. Gratitude for the privilege to serve this great state. Gratitude for the ability to shape our communities with justice and equity. Gratitude for the vocation of being leaders and visionaries. As we begin our work on this sacred day, we seek the presence of the holy among us, in our neighbors, in our colleagues, in our constituents, and throughout our state. May we find unity in our shared humanity and strength in our collective endeavors. And in the stillness of this moment, we remember those affected by the collapse of the Key Bridge on Tuesday. We pray for the continued efforts to recover, for those who care for the injured and deceased, for those in the shipping industry, and for those whose jobs and families rely on the Key Bridge. Grant us wisdom this day to discern what is right and courage to act with compassion and justice. We recognize that we can't do everything, but we can do something, and in that may we find liberation and life. May our efforts today and every day echo the eternal call to love kindness, do justice, and walk humbly. And may our actions in this space and beyond be a testament to our shared humanity to build a world of peace, equality, and dignity for all. We pray this in your many names. Amen.
Recognizing the senator from the 44th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce Pastor Katie Calloway of Christian Temple, along with her co-pastor, John Calloway. They embody the vision of their church as a faithful, growing church demonstrating true community and deep Christian spirituality, and certainly, you can hear in her prayer, a passion for justice. You know, I received a communication about the pastor and her husband from another constituent, and they said that they have brought a unique perspective and energy to our congregation and the Catonsville community at large. They are more than pastors, they are community leaders who are at the center of the ministries and outreach offered through our congregation. They serve the congregation together weekly, preaching and leading a meaningful worship service and offering loving pastoral care. Reverend Calloway is joined by her mother, Dr. Alexa Schindler, as well as her husband, John, and their 6-year-old daughter, Sophie. And I ask that they be given a senatorial greeting and that the Reverend's prayer be journalized.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And without objection, we most certainly will journalize the invocation. Thank you for your wonderful remarks this morning, and appreciate you all being here with us. Thank you. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? Mr. Minority Whip. All right, I think we've got everyone there. The clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Let's see, do we have any guests today? Senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you would, focus your attention to the right. Two gentlemen are going to be standing to the right. We're honored this morning to recognize both of them. The first is Jordan Lewis. Jordan Lewis is a resident of 27A in Charles County. He is a junior at Towson University studying political science. He's an intern with us this legislative session. Welcome, Jordan.
Welcome.
Second, Mr. President, colleagues, if you could direct your attention to the gallery as well as to the second gentleman to your right. The second gentleman to your right is Trey Somerville. Trey Somerville is a resident of my colleague from District 29, but he is part of a dynamic program we have in Southern Maryland, particularly in my office, where we grab up every future leader that we meet while working in Southern Maryland, and Trey works with us as a intern, a high school intern, and he does a lot of work with us in Calvert County. Trey will be attending George Mason University. We are honored to have him as my shadow today, and in the gallery, his dad, Kerry Somerville, is in the gallery, and if the body remembers, we celebrated the first black sheriff of the state of Maryland in St. Mary's County, Jolie Somerville. They're not related, but as we say in Southern Maryland, we're all related. So if you all would give us a warm Senate welcome to Kerry and Joe. And Trey.
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Yes, Senator from Baltimore County.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the Senate. I would like to introduce Haley Schwab. Stand up. And she is a 6th grader at Parkville Middle School, and she wants to be a senator one day. So she's here shadowing me today with her mother, Caitlin, and her grandmother, Debbie. So let's give her a round of applause.
Welcome, welcome. Yes, Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I won't sing this time, but if colleagues, we could, in the gallery today, both in the House and the Senate, if the DeMolays would rise, please. Please give a warm welcome to Marilyn DeMolay. Founded in 1921, this young men's organization between 12 and 21 is an international organization that strives not only to create leaders, but extraordinary leaders of character. This year, they have elected my son, Matthew McKay, which is one of your pages a couple weeks ago, as their state master counselor this year. And they are here to celebrate DeMolay Month and to learn about state governance. So if we could give them a round of applause, I appreciate it. Welcome DeMolay.
Welcome.
There are chapters from all across the state.
Excellent,
Thank
excellent. Senator from the 37th District.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I'd like to direct your attention to the gallery. We have some spring breakers with us to celebrate and enjoy the spring. We've got Jane and Claire Miller, both elementary students at St. Peter and Paul in Easton High School. They're up in the gallery. Jane and Claire, could you all stand up for us? They're with their mom, Megan Miller, who works for the Minority Caucus. So welcome. It's great to have you, and happy spring break.
Welcome. Welcome. Very good. Yes, Senator from the 20th District. Seems to have an apprentice with
That's right.
today.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. We're keeping with the spring break. My daughter, Jacqueline Smith, is joining me today. She'll be shadowing me today. So if you could just give her a nice, warm welcome.
Welcome back, Jacqueline.
Hey, you wave, everybody.
Oh, we know, Jacqueline, you're not shy. Maybe in this moment, but. All right. Yes, Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining me in the gallery are some guests from my legislative district, Brian Kildee, and then 3 third graders, Rosalie Kildee, Nani Mansfield, and Jack Holloway, visiting us today. Please welcome them.
Welcome. Excellent. Any further introductions? Yes, Senator from the 40th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as you all know, the Legislative Black Caucus here in Maryland is the largest Legislative Black Caucus here in our nation. Today on the floor, we're joined by Representative Hall. Representative Hall, if you would please stand. Legislator Hall, representing the great state of Alabama, is the chair and president of the Legislative Black Caucus, the National Legislative Black Caucus. NBCSL is the nation's premier organization representing and serving the interests of African American state legislators, with more than 700 members representing more than 60 million Americans. NBCSL serves as the national network, advocate, and catalyst for public policy, innovation, information exchange, and joint action on critical issues affecting African Americans and other marginalized communities. Colleagues, please join me in giving a warm Senate welcome to Representative Hall and the Executive Director of NBSL, Ms. Kemba, to the floor. Thank you all so very much.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thanks for being here with us. Thank you. All right, any further introductions before we jump in today? Any further introductions? If not, happy opening day for those. It's been a long week, so this is hopefully, we'll see with the rain, whether or not it plays out. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it happens, but to be determined. If not, apparently they may move it to tomorrow, so we'll get to wear orange 2 days in a row. So be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. If we could start with a message from the House. Clerk will read the message.
From the House of Delegates, number 1, Senate bills passed by yeas and nays. Senate Bill 18, Senator Augustine, Health Occupations Pharmacists Administration of Vaccines.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. We have another message, number 27. Clerk will read the message.
House Bill 332, Delegate Addison, Out-of-State Motor Vehicles, Improper Registration Report, rules. House Bill 573, Delegate Simmons, Citizen Committee for the Enhancement of Communities Surrounded by BWI, Thurgood Marshall Airport, membership, rules.
All right, bills will be referred to the appropriate, or to the Rules Committee. Let's go ahead and start with Finance today. We've got report number 39. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 76, Delegate Lopez, Health Occupations Pharmacists Administration of Vaccines, favorable.
See, Senator from District 12, recognized as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 76 is identical to Senate Bill 18, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill authorizes licensed pharmacists under specified conditions to, number 1, administer certain vaccinations to an individual as young as 7 years old, and number 2, order and administer a vaccine for influenza COVID-19 or in response to a public health emergency to an individual who is at least 3 years old. There are no amendments, there's no fiscal impact. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 76 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk read the next, passed for third reading. Clerk read the next bill.
House Bill 464, Delegate Martinez, Health Occupations Practice Audiology Definition, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 33rd is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 464 is identical to Senate Bill 795, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill alters the definition of practice audiology, specifying that practice of audiology means to evaluate, diagnose, and treat auditory or vestibular conditions in the ear, and to prescribe, order, sell, dispense, or fit certain assistive devices. It includes specified testing, screening, imaging, and removal activities. Generally, the practice of audiology does not include surgery or the preparation, operation, or performance of radiographic imaging. There are no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 464 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 628, Delegate S. Johnson, Health Occupational, Clinical, Marriage, and Family Therapists, Reciprocal Licensure Requirements, favorable.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. House Bill 628 is identical to Senate Bill 409, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill requires the State Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists to waive the education, experience, and examination requirements for a licensure as a clinical marriage and family therapist for an applicant that is licensed or certified to practice clinical marriage and family therapy in another state, territory, or jurisdiction if specified requirements are met. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact, and I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 628 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 934, Delegate Hutchinson, State Board of Physicians, performance of X-ray duties without a license, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 934 is identical to Senate Bill 830, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill alters the circumstances under which an individual may perform X-ray duties without a license. A physician's office that employs an unlicensed individual to perform X-ray duties is responsible for ensuring that all the requirements are met for each X-ray examination performed. The amendment is technical. There's no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 934 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to, they're not available. Report number 40. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 39, Delegate R. Lewis, Residential Service Agencies Reimbursement Personal Assistance Services Home Care Workers' Rights Act of 2024, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is very similar to Senate Bill 197. The bill requires that if a residential service agency wants to be reimbursed by the Medicaid program for personal assistance services, the personnel care providers providing the services must be classified as employees. The amendment simply makes it conform to the Senate bill that we passed. I move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 39 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 52, Delegate Stewart, State Employees Parental Bereavement Leave, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 33rd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 52 is similar to Senate Bill 109, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill establishes specified parental bereavement leave with pay following the death of a child, infant, or after a stillbirth for all state employees in all three branches of state government. The amendment conforms the bill to Senate Bill 109 and removes unnecessary definitions. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 52 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 62, Delegate Simpson, State Employees' Rights and Protections, Personal Actions and Harassment, Investigation of Complaints, favorable.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. House Bill 62 is similar to Senate Bill 133, which passed the Senate. The bill extends the time for an investigation to be conducted and written decision issued from 30 days to 60 days after a complaint alleging harassment or discrimination is received from a state employee or an applicant for employment. The time may also be extended an additional 30 days. So there are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 62 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 211, Delegate Taveras, Business Regulation, Contractors, Subcontractors, Brokers, Prohibited Conduct, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 28th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, House Bill 211 is identical to Senate Bill 64H, which passed this body. This bill prohibits a person from serving as a broker, contractor, and subcontractor between a contractor and subcontractor in the state of Maryland within 5 years of being convicted of various types of transgressions under federal or state law. This bill cuts down on the big problem in Maryland of wage theft. There are no amendments to this bill. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 211 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 238, Chair Economic Matters Committee, Public Health, Clean Indoor Act, revisions, favorable with 3 amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 238 is similar to Senate Bill 244, which passed the Senate. The department bill extends the ban on smoking in indoor areas to the public and adds vaping. The bill also codifies signage requirements. The amendments conform the bill to the Senate Bill 244 as it passed the Senate. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 238 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, we've got another Finance Committee report, Calendar 41. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 260, Delegate Chang, State Personnel Collective Bargaining Supervisory Employees, favorable.
Recognizing the Senator from Montgomery County is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 260 is identical to Senate Bill 192, which passed the Senate. The bill grants specified supervisors in the executive branch of state government collective bargaining rights and establishes a separate bargaining unit for these supervisors, should they elect to be represented in collective bargaining by an exclusive representative. There are no amendments, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 260 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 380, Delegate Solomon, State Emergency Medical Services Board, License and Certificates, Application Requirements, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 380 is identical to Senate Bill 374, which passed the Senate. The bill, as with other regulated healthcare occupations or professions, authorizes the State Emergency Medical Services Board to use an applicant's Social Security number, an individual taxpayer ID number, or alternative documents permitted by the Federal Social Security Act as a condition for licensure or certification to provide emergency medical service. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 380 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 385, Delegate J. Long, Wage Payment and Collection, Pay Stubs, Pay Statements, Required Information, favorable.
Recognizing the Senator from the 22nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 385 is similar to Senate Bill 38, which passes Senate. The bill adds to the information that an employer must include in a physical pay stub or an online statement to an employee for each pay period. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 385 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 571, Delegate Shi, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Programs, Modification, favorable.
Recognize the Senator from the 40th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 571 is identical to Senate Bill 485, which passed the Senate. This bill makes additional changes to the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program for the purposes of effectuating the Maryland Department of Labor's implementation of the program. The bill extends key deadlines and alters definitions and components of the program's administration. The start date for the required contributions to fund is moved 9 months later to July 1st, 2025, and benefit payments will begin 6 months later on July 1st, 2026. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 571 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 589, Dorchester County Delegation, Dorchester County applicants polygraph examination favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 589 is a Dorchester County bill, and it's similar to the Senate Bill 809, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill exempts an applicant for employment as a paramedic or as an emergency medical technician and as a 911 center dispatcher in Dorchester County from the prohibition against an employer requiring or demanding as a condition of employment that the applicant take a polygraph examination. The amendment conforms the bill to Senate Bill 809. The bill is supported by our Senate Dorchester delegation. I move the amendment and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Recognizing the vice chair of the committee. Senator from Montgomery County.
Senator, thank you. Will the floor leader yield?
Will floor yield. Senator may proceed.
Sure.
Thank you, Senator. I have no problems with the bill, but in law, these folks are called 911 specialists, not dispatcher. Would you be willing to special order the bill until tomorrow just for an easy floor amendment, correcting that language?
Let me see if that, let me check the bill very quickly. Can we hold the bill for a second? Because I may have misspoke. Sometimes when you have the microphone and you're describing a bill, you mischaracterize. Would that be okay, Mr. President?
I'm in the bill, line 24.
Does it
on
say
page
that?
3, and it does say that. As a 911 center dispatcher at the Dorchester County 911 Center. So it's literally a one-word floor amendment if you'd be amenable, and we could just
For what
look
it's
at
worth,
it tomorrow.
it's on third reading
Yes,
for the
I'm
House
aware.
bill. We could take it up.
Either way, that's fine.
Is that amenable? We'll
No,
press
there's no
along
objection.
local. Okay.
way.
All right, let's do that. So questions on the one amendment. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title on second reader? Hearing none. House Bill 589 is hereby ordered passed to third reading, and we may have an amendment tomorrow on that one. Excellent. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 649, Delegate White Holland, Labor and Employment, Equal Pay for Equal Work, Wage Range Transparency, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. House Bill 649 is identical to Senate Bill 525, which passed the Senate. The bill requires employers to publicly disclose the specified wage range, benefits, and other compensation for external and internal job postings, and to disclose the previous information to applicants in which the job posting was not made public. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 649 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to report number 42.
House
Clerk.
House Bill 650, Delegate Boafo, Maryland Department of Labor, report on apprenticeship mentoring ratios, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 511, which passed the Senate. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 650 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 710, Delegate Rogers, Business Regulation, Household Goods Movers, Special Fund and Fees, favorable.
Recognizing chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 710 is identical to Senate Bill 559, which passed the Senate. The bill establishes the Household Goods Movers Registration Fund for the purpose of covering the actual direct and indirect cost of regulating household good movers and moving services. The Maryland Department of Labor must set fees for its services to carry out the requirements related to regulating household goods movers. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 710 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 874, Delegate Pena Melnick, State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators Requirements for Assisted Living Managers, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 874 is the same as Senate Bill 613, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill alters provisions of law that were recently enacted to regulate assisted living program managers. The bill extends the date to July 1st, 2026. The amendment is clarifying. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one amendment in the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Anyone? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 874 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 882, Delegate Rosenberg, Business Regulations, Sale of Motor Fuel Pricing Signage, Gas Price Clarity Act, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
House Bill 882 is identical to Senate Bill 651, which passed the Senate. The bill requires a sign at all retail service stations to prominently display the credit and debit price if higher than the cash price, or the credit, debit, and cash price for a gallon of regular gasoline and diesel fuel. The bill also preempts local governments from passing similar requirements. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 882 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1155, Delegate Stewart, Hospitals, Opioid Overdose and Opioid-Related Emergency Medical Conditions Treatment, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the vice chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. House Bill 1155 is the same as Senate Bill 1071, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill requires hospitals to establish and maintain protocols and capacity to provide appropriate evidence-based interventions that reduce the risk of subsequent harm and fatality following an opioid-related overdose before discharging a patient, to possess at least one formulation of certain medication-assisted treatment, and to treat a patient who presents in a hospital emergency department for an opioid-related overdose. The amendment removes a reporting requirement, and I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1155 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, Senators, we're going to go to the capital budget, and we're going to ask the chair of the capital budget subcommittee to join us up front. This is, if we could get Madam Clerk to read the first bill. This is report number 23.
Is Senate Bill 361, the President Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2024, favorable with 171 amendments.
All right, we're going to ask the capital budget subcommittee chair to please join us for the floor report on the Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2024.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, great to see you. Mr. President, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee has completed its review of the fiscal 2025 capital budget, which is presented to you today, Senate Bill 361, the capital budget of the state of Maryland, and presented for your consideration today. I just want to let you know that at the end, we're going to lay the bill over. That way you can look at it, and certainly if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or any of the committee members. First, let me begin by expressing my deepest appreciation for the opportunity, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to continue serving as chair. Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to continue as chair of the Capital Budget Subcommittee. This couldn't have been done without the great assistance of the chair, the vice chair of the Capital Budget Subcommittee, the entire subcommittee, and the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee as a whole. Before you, colleagues, we're able to efficiently and effectively develop a capital budget that's now before you. I want to thank each member of the Senate, everybody that's here today, whose advocacy for their constituents is reflected within this legislation. Finally, I want to thank the Office of Policy Analysis for their tremendous guidance and assistance. In particular, I want to thank Matthew Klein, Emily Haskell, Madeline Miller, Yeshadora Rai, Shannon Sullivan, and Jody Sprinkle. This capital budget, colleagues, has taken again a statewide approach where every area from Western Maryland to the Eastern Shore can feel its benefits. This bill, colleagues, is one of Maryland's largest job creators, infrastructure and community investment programs we have. Funding in this capital budget will create and maintain tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs and leverage approximately $2 billion of local and private funds. Each session, our committee takes action to ensure that the capital budget is affordable under the state's debt affordability limits. This capital budget is no exception. The level of debt authorized in this year's capital budget is well within these limits. Preparing for possible economic uncertainty combined with the recent revenue write-down made certainly for more challenging budget situation. However, the more difficult fiscal situation did not change our goal and our determination to do the most we could for Marylanders all across the state. And I am confident that what you see before you has accomplished just that. We did that by appropriating $3.3 billion in direct investment in our communities and state agencies across the state. We did this through $1.8 billion of general obligation bond fund proceeds, $455 million of revenue bonds, including $425 million through the Built to Learn program, another $168 million of general fund PAYGO, and $900 million of special and federal PAYGO. In addition, the Transportation Capital Program provides another $2.8 billion. In addition to the needs of state agencies, the committee considered 442 legislative bond initiatives, requests that totaled over $196 million. And colleagues, I'll remind you that the capital budget from last year is $1 billion less than we had in the previous year, but we still tried to do what we could to reflect all of your values in what you see before you. So the capital budget includes the $15 million for 122 new Senate projects, and the House will also use another $15 million for the House. We'll use another $15 million to give the House of Delegates for their selected legislative bond initiatives. This all represents an infusion of capital funds to stimulate investment at the local level. The committee also considered several hundred additional requests from local governments and nonprofit organizations, and the capital and operating budgets provide another $270 million for local projects to assist communities and non-for-profits. This also reflects the Senate priorities. The committee is proud of its efforts in crafting this capital budget and looks forward to your favorable consideration. If I may, Mr. President, I would like to turn to the materials on everybody's desk. First, you have the report of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, which explains each recommended by the committee, and that is this right here. And again, we'll go through it more tomorrow, but I just wanted you to know what I'm looking at. Each amendment is numbered in the report and the committee reprint of the bill. The report includes reductions and a few additions and budget bill language, all listed in the order in which the projects are listed in the budget bill. Committee narrative typically requests additional information or provides guidance. Committee narrative items are not amendments to the bill and are not therefore subject to floor amendments. However, if you have any concerns about a narrative, please advise me and the committee so your concerns could be considered. Next, you have the committee reprint of the bill of Senate Bill 361, which is this. The reprint reflects the committee's amendments to the bill. Amendments are numbered and correspond to the explanations of report. All actions are listed in order in which the projects are listed in the bill. Colleagues, just so you know, the actions in this legislation do not yet include House actions. This is just what we've done, the Senate. Once we take action as an official body on the capital budget, we'll start seeing what the House is doing. On the amendments, please keep in mind that all floor amendments will be drawn to the committee reprint. Staff of Legislative Services are available to assist in drafting amendments. We appreciate if members who wish to offer floor amendments provide a copy of those amendments to me or the chair prior to the session on Friday. With that, Mr. President, I would move that Senate Bill 361 and the amendments lie over until tomorrow.
All right, the senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will lie over to tomorrow. Recognizing the senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to rise for a quick second and give a compliment to the chair of the capital budget on behalf of myself and the Republican caucus for all the hard work you have done. You know this budget, you know it well. For those of you who don't realize, he walks around with this big, thick binder. You know, I'm proud to serve on the committee with him. He knows each of these projects, even when you mention it, he can. I tested him one day. We were working on making decisions, and he was able to figure it out without even looking. So with you, your staff, Shannon, you guys do an incredible job. We thank you. There's no partisanship in this. You do what is right from Oakland to Ocean City, St. Mary's to Maryland line. You know the budget. You work well with us. We appreciate it, and I just can't compliment you enough on how hard you've done the work. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Now, we haven't passed it yet, so don't get too comfortable. You know, no, just I know. In all seriousness, no, we appreciate the efforts and energy. This is complicated, lots of moving pieces, and we really appreciate the work thus far. And we're going to close it out well this year. All right, the clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 966, Senator Zucker, prior authorizations of state debt, alterations, favorable with 13 amendments.
And we'll recognize the Capital Budget Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So this is, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is, when we pass the capital budget, there's legislative bond initiatives, and then there are miscellaneous projects. Sometimes there needs to be technical changes in past capital appropriations, and we need a mechanism to make those changes. This is one of those mechanisms. There are amendments. There are 13 amendments. I won't go through all 13 amendments because they'll reflect the requests of the Senate. They make changes, technical changes to names of beneficiaries and some locations. Colleagues, this bill often follows the capital budget, so just to maintain that posture, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but other than that, I'd like to lay the bill over, the amendments in the bill over.
All right, the senator has moved the amendments in the favorable committee report and also moved to lie the bill and the amendments over under the rule. Is that
That's correct, sir.
All right, without objection, the motion is in order, so the bill and the amendments will lie over under the rule, and we'll take it up tomorrow. All right. Let's switch back over. Let's do the Senate bill. I somehow missed that one. This is Education, Energy, and the Environment. This is report number 42. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 932, Senator Elfreth, Maryland Agricultural BMP Best in Show Program established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize Senator from the 35th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes a Maryland Agricultural Best Management Practices program for specified purposes, generally focused on coordinated approach to funding and implementation of multiple agricultural best management practices, or BMPs, that would achieve the greatest impact. The bill also establishes a Maryland Ag BMP Best in Show account in the Maryland Department of Agriculture to fund the program. The account is authorized to receive funding from specified existing funds and programs. There are 2 committee amendments. The amendments alter the purpose of the program and the duties of the department. They also remove application requirements as well as evaluation and publication requirements on part of the department. Lastly, the amendments alter the name of the program and fund, and also there is a co-sponsor amendment. I'd like to move the amendments and ask for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 932 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to the report number 41. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 497, Delegate Hornberger, hunting, non-resident Sika deer stamp fee alteration favorable.
All right. Sika deer. Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's see. House Bill 497 is identical to Senate Bill 508, which passed this body. The bill increases the fee for a non-resident Sika deer stamp from $25 to $200. The bill takes effect July 1st, 2024. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 497 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 562, Delegate Hornberger, Special Chesapeake Bay and Coastal Sport Fishing License, non-resident license fee favorable.
Recognize the Senator from District 9 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 562 is identical to Senate Bill 507, which passed this body. The bill increases the annual fee for a Special Chesapeake Bay and Coastal Sport Fishing License for non-resident applicants from $50 to $100. There are no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 562 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 738, Delegate Wims, Business Regulation, Licensed Home Improvement Contractors Liability Insurance favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This cross-file bill is identical to Senate Bill 6, which passed unanimously from this body earlier in the session. Increases the amount of general liability insurance that a licensed home improvement contractor must maintain. There were no amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report, Mr. President.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 738 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 785, Delegate D. Jones, Freedom to Read Act, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the Senator from the 43rd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 785 is the cross-file of SB 7038, discussed and passed in this body a few weeks ago. HB 785 asks our state and local partners to set policies and standards for our libraries to continue for them to be foundations for educational excellence and the key to a free and open society. There is one committee amendment. That committee amendment focuses on the use of libraries. There's one committee amendment. And I move for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 785 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 979, Delegate Foley, Agricultural Invasive Plant Species Regulation, Biodiversity and Agricultural Protection Act, favorable.
Recognizing the Senator from District 10 as the floor leader.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill is the same as Senate Bill 915 that passed this chamber. The bill alters the regulatory approach for controlling invasive plant species in the state. The bill repeals the existing two-tiered regulatory approach and instead establishes a regulatory approach that generally involves the assessment of non-native plant species by expert assessors to determine the invasiveness rank of each such species, the review of such assessment, the determination of the Secretary of Agriculture whether such species should be classified as prohibited invasive plants and included on a consolidated list of the Maryland invasive plant species or a watch list. Specified regulation must be adopted among other things, and the regulation must clarify as prohibited invasive plants all terrestrial plants classified by regulation before January 1, 2024. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 979 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to the report on the Committee on Rules. This is report number 6. Clerk will read the report.
Report of the Committee on Rules, report number 6.
Recognizing the chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the bills be re-referred to their appropriate committees.
All
Thank
right,
you.
without objection, we will re-refer the bills to their appropriate standing committees. Let's go to judicial proceedings. We'll start with the Senate bill. This is report number 2727. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 42, Senator Kelly, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding, Helmet Requirements for Minors, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires that minors participating in commercially offered equestrian activities wear a helmet. The First Amendment clarifies that the requirement applies only to facilities whose primary purpose is equestrian, and the Second Amendment allows for alternative therapeutic helmets for children receiving therapy services. That's it. Move for the adoption of the favorable committee report and the 2 amendments.
Mr. President.
All right, let's see. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes Senator from District 7.
Thank you. The floor leader, thanks. So
Absolutely.
this bill came up last year. I asked some questions about it. Actually, the House sponsor came to my farm. We had a long talk this summer, and the concern was on private property. Is this still keep private property out?
Yes, sir. And the House sponsor was very appreciative of your collaboration, so she made sure to include that amendment, as well as the therapeutic helmets amendment, which you also suggested.
Perfect. Thank you. Just making sure. Thank
All
you, Mr.
right,
President.
excellent. On the amendments, any further discussion? If not, any objections to the amendments? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 42 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to judicial proceedings, consent calendar 5. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report on the Committee on Judicial Proceedings, report number 25, consent calendar number 5.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Consent calendar number 5. These all passed the Judicial Proceedings Committee unanimously, and the House bills are identical to the Senate bills that passed unanimously. So I'd move the amendment.
All right.
Consent calendar.
Chair moves that we adopt the favorable report for House bills on consent calendar number 5. Please take a look at the bills to see if there are any bills that senators wish to handle separately. Any separations? If not, any objections to the report? Without objection, the report is adopted for House bills on report number 5, and they are ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to the next consent calendar.
Report of the Committee on Judicial Proceedings, report number 26, consent calendar number 6.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bills contained in the consent calendar number 6 are identical to their Senate counterparts. I'd move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, chair moves for the adoption of the favorable report for bills on consent calendar number 6. Are there any bills that senators wish to handle separately? If not, any objections to the adoption of the reports? Without objection, the reports are adopted. House bills on consent calendar number 6 are ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to judicial proceedings calendar number 28. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 113, Delegate Lehman, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding Helmet Requirement for Minors, favorable.
Recognizing the cross-file sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This bill is identical to the one we just discussed, and it has no amendments. Move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 113 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 143, Delegate Foley, Condominiums, Sales Contracts, Asbestos Disclosure, favorable with 1 amendment.
All right, 143, House Bill Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
My apologies, Mr. President. This bill establishes that a contract for the sale of a condominium unit is unenforceable if the contract does not contain notices related to the presence of asbestos. There is a committee amendment. It conforms the bill to Senate Bill 46, which has passed the Senate unanimously. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report and the one committee amendment.
All right. The floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Now to the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 143 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 159, Delegate Corman, Common Ownership Communities Electric Vehicle Recharging Equipment Act of 2024, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. House Bill 159 as amended is identical to Senate Bill 465, which passed the Senate. The amendment conforms the bill to the Senate version. As a reminder, this bill applies current standards for installing EV charging equipment that exist for condos to the co-ops, and also requires the Department of Housing and Community Development to include information on its website. Move for the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 159 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 161, Chair, Environment and Transportation Committee, Vehicle Laws, Driver's License, Learner's Instruction Permits, and Identification Cards, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this departmental bill exempts certain applicants for identification cards who present appropriate documentation to the Motor Vehicle Administration from paying the required fee. The bill also extends the term of a learner's instructional permit from 180 days to 1 year. Finally, the bill establishes that a driver's license issued to certain U.S. government contractors and any dependents must remain in full force and effect during the absence from the state if specified criteria are met. The committee amendments, there are just one. Amendment number 1 provides that MVA may exempt applicants who require an ID card participate in state-administered program from paying the required fee. Move the amendment, sir.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 161 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 216, Delegate Charkoudian, Condominiums, Common Elements, Clean Energy Equipment, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this House Bill 216 conforms to its Senate cross-file, and as a reminder, the bill establishes a specific procedure by which the governing body of a condominium may grant a lease in excess of 1 year or a similar interest affecting the common elements of the condominium for the installation and use of clean energy equipment. Mr. President, there were two amendments. I'd move for the adoption of the favorable committee report and two amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Did we just do that?
No.
Okay. So question still remains on the amended report. Any objections to the report?
There we go. Okay.
Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Almost. There we go. Any amendments? Any amendments? Without, if not, House Bill 216 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 256, Delegate D. Jones, Waterway Incident Notification System, WINS Study, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, in consultation with other interested stakeholders, to study and make recommendations regarding the feasibility of establishing a waterway incident notification system for specified purposes. They must submit an interim report and a final report of its findings and recommendations to the Governor and the General Assembly by December 1st, 2024 and December 1st, 2025, respectively. The bill takes effect June 1st, 2024 and terminates June 30th, 2026. There are no committee amendments. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, Chairman moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. We may want to look closer at this one, given what just happened, see whether there's something we want to add into it. But we maybe third reader, we'll think about it. Great. All right, on the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 256 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 486, Delegate Fair, Residential Property Taxes, Contract Disclosures, Superfund Sites, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the Senator from District 4 is floor leader.
Mr. President, at the request of the bill sponsor, I'd like to special order this bill for the purpose of amendment.
All right, do you want to lay it over, or special order is fine? If there's any objections to the Senator's request of special order?
Thank you.
All right, without objection, the bill will be special ordered at the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 601, Delegate Lehman, Street Racing, Exhibition Driving, Prohibited Acts, Enforcement and Penalties, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the Senator from District 4 is floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 601, as amended, this bill is nearly identical to Senate Bill 442, which passed the Senate unanimously. This bill increases penalties and points assessed for violations related to participation in racing or speed contests. The bill also establishes a statewide prohibition on exhibition driving. There is one committee amendment. It is technical and corrects an erroneous cross-reference. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Senator from District 1, is that next? All right, no amendments. The House Bill 601 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 906, Delegate Heinbach, Garrett County Sheriff's Salary Alteration, favorable with one amendment.
All right, recognize the Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 906 is a bill that establishes the salary of the Garrett County Sheriff equal to 80% of the salary of the state's attorney of Garrett County. The committee recommends favorable with an amendment. The amendment is technical and conforms the bill to Senate Bill 521, which passed the Senate unanimously. I move that we accept the favorable with amendment from the committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 906 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to, we have an executive nominations report. Clerk will read the report.
The Senate Executive Nominations Committee reports favorably on the attached gubernatorial appointments and recommends that the Senate of Maryland advise and consent to these appointments. Antonio Hayes, Chair.
Recognizing the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Executive Nominations Report is a result of the meeting that we just had this Monday, and then we had a subsequent meeting after session yesterday. Please take a close look at it. Mr. President, I ask that we special order this bill until tomorrow on the roll.
All right, the Senator moves that we special order the report to the appropriate time tomorrow and here in open session. Any objections? Without objection, the report will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Senators, if there are any names that senators wish to or need to consider separately, please review those and hand them to the chair ahead of tomorrow if feasible. All right, let's go to a special order calendar. Special order calendar number 66. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill number 1, Delegate Boyce, Maryland Paint Stewardship. Question is in the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, question is on the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. All right, let's see, Madam Secretary, could we please ring the bells? Madam Clerk, if we could please do a quorum call.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We have some third readers to take up here. The first is a consent calendar. Clerk will read the calendar.
Senate third reading calendar number 5, consent number 5.
All right, Senators, these are third reading House bills up for final passage. Please take a look at all of the bills. Are there any bills that Senators wish to handle separately? Any? All right, if not, question is on third reading. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House bills on consent calendar number 5, having received a constitutional majority, are declared passed. Let's go to the next consent calendar, number 6. Clerk will read the calendar.
Senate third reading calendar number 6, consent number 6.
All right, this is third reading House bills for final passage. Any bills that Senators wish to handle separately? Take a quick look. Look like they're all out of Triple E. Appears not. All right, the clerk will call the roll. Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House bills on consent calendar number 6, having received a constitutional majority, are declared passed. Let's go to consent calendar number 7. Clerk will read the calendar.
Senate third reading calendar number 7, consent number 7.
All right, these are House bills on third reading for final passage. Senators, please take a look. 5 bills here. Any that Senators wish to handle separately? If not, any discussion? All right, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House bills on consent calendar number 7, having received a constitutional majority, are declared passed. Let's go to third reading calendar number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 472, Delegate Atterbury, Education School Mapping Data Program established.
House Bill 472 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 472, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 569, Delegate Solomon, Higher Education Credit Eligibility and Transfer of Credits, English as a Second Language Courses, Credit for All Language Learning, Call Act.
House Bill 569 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 569, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 662, Delegate Guyton, Large Family Care Homes and Child Care Centers, Child Care Teachers, Minimum Age.
House Bill 662 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 39 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 662, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 678, Delegate Harris, Public Higher Education, Communities of Interest, Targeted Recruitment and Outreach Efforts.
House Bill 678 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 678 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 760, Delegate Polakovich Carr, Office of Legislative Audits, Local School Systems Report.
House Bill 760 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 760, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1115, Delegate Solomon, County Boards of Education Budget Notice Transparency and Education Spending Act.
House Bill 1115 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1115, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1244, Delegate Smith, Maryland Higher Education Commission, Academic Program Approval, Institutional Mission Statements, Requirements.
House Bill 1244 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1244, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Recognize the senator from the 35th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was hoping not to have to do it this session, but first one of the year, I'd like to change my vote from no to yay on House Bill 662.
No to yay, 662. Senator has the vote form that if we get one of the pages to please deliver that to the secretary. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 38th District.
Yes, Mr. President, I have a vote change on HB 662 from nay to yay, and HB 760 from yay to nay.
Okay, let's just double check to make sure we get can we get the vote change slip just to double, I kind of lost it myself on that one.
What's that?
662, yay.
662, and also HB 678. From yay to nay.
Yay to
I'm
nay.
sorry, from nay to yay.
Nay to yay.
Okay.
All right, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's go to third reading calendar number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 19, Delegate T. Morgan, Natural Resources, Northern Snakehead, Common Name.
All right, House Bill 19 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 19, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 60, Delegate Guyton, Rehabilitation Services Disability Definition.
House Bill 60 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 60, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 78, Chair Appropriations Committee, Maryland Environmental Service, Governance and Requirements.
House Bill 78 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. All right, with 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 78, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 343, Delegate Munoz, Environment, Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee alterations.
House Bill 343 is on third reading. Recognize the senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm thinking of an amendment, so can we special order this till Monday?
Monday. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 367, Delegate Smith, Community Colleges Contraception Access Requirements.
House Bill 367 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 367, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 481, Delegate Hutchinson, Natural Resources Antlerless Deer Hunting Programs Authorization.
House Bill 481 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 481, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 510, Delegate Stewart, Business Facade Improvement Program eligible funding recipients.
House Bill 510 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 510, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, senators, that does it. The desk is clear. Got through a bunch today. Very productive. Looks like the House is moving stuff along as well, so I think we're all in a good spot. They're doing third readers as we speak. Let's do committee announcements. See logistics first. Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet today for 14 bill hearings, 40 witnesses, followed by voting.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, Chair of Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee will meet at 1 p.m. for 11 bill hearings. We will then have a work group briefing on a governor's affordable housing bill that's over on third reader in the other chamber, which will be getting early next week. So we're going to find out exactly where things are on that, and then we will immediately after that move into a voting session.
Excellent. Busy day. Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. 1 o'clock voting.
1 o'clock. Judicial proceedings. Look at that efficiency. They are doing well, doing well. All right. Yes, Senator from Anne Arundel.
Yes, Mr. President. I rise to move to suspend the rules for a late introduction.
Senator moves for a late introduction. Let's see if the senator will describe the bill.
First, if I could give a point of personal privilege, I wanted to publicly thank the governor and his administration for their tireless work and also including us in the process. And I think we should also thank our senator, president, for his compassion and steady leadership in this process. It's a very difficult process, complex. And DLS lastly, because I gave them a bill yesterday and I got it back yesterday. They're just doing amazing work down there. So I think everybody, if we could give them a round of applause, I think it would be worth it. So as far as to the bill, you know, I was brokenhearted when I saw what happened and to the people on the bridge and also their families. But then I started thinking, what can we do to help with the long-term problem of the infrastructure? An example, in Florida, they had a similar structure and it took 7 years to rebuild it. And they actually had 2 spans where they could continue to use 1. So we have a daunting task ahead of us. So I know there may be some other bills being put in to help deal with this because it's a complex and big issue, but one area we're focusing on is the critical transportation infrastructure. So the senator from District 6 and I have submitted this legislation. Welcome everybody to co-sponsor it, hopefully if it comes back out on the floor. But there's going to be a tremendous economic impact, and we need to get the critical infrastructure back up again. And one tool we have in our toolbox is a state of emergency. And as you know, the governor did have declare a state of emergency. And what it does, it has a lot of powers that the governor can do resources, clear the channel. They can even take personal property and use it for government use. And there's a lot of broad, unfettered power. And typically, the General Assembly has set it up that it's short term, that you can declare it for 30 days unless it's renewed for another 30 days. And that was the intent. But what we have here is the critical infrastructure is not going to be a 30-day or 60-day. It could be potentially years. So what this bill does is it works to create a limited, conceptually a limited state of emergency power just for critical infrastructure so they can expedite certain processes in it and we can get that bridge up quicker. For those reasons, I would ask that we suspend the rules.
All right. The senator has moved to suspend the rules for the purpose of a late introduction of a bill. Are there any objection to the senator's motion? Without objection, the motion carries, the bill having been introduced. Recognizing the senator from Anne Arundel.
And I haven't done this very often. I'd like to also suspend the rules so the bill could directly be referred to the appropriate standing committee for a public hearing. And just in context, you know, we can get things done very quickly down here. I've seen it over the years since I've been here. Last year we had one bill that was introduced March 30th and we got it passed. Today's March 28th, so we have time if there's a will, so I'd appreciate your consideration.
All right, senator has moved to suspend the rules for the referring to the give us just a moment. Tripoli. All right, so the senator has moved to suspend the rules to bypass the Rules Committee and send it to Education, Energy, and the Environment. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, the motion carries. The bill will be referred to Education, Energy, and the Environment. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 1187, Senator Simon Ayer, State of Emergency, Restoration, Repair, or Replacement of Critical Infrastructure, Suspension of State or Local Laws, Education, Energy, and the Environment.
All right. The bill will be referred to the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. Let's see, are there any other standing committee updates? Yes, Chair of, Senator from Montgomery County?
Judicial proceedings.
Judicial proceedings.
So, thank you, Mr. President. Though we don't have any formal work on the docket today, we will be voting tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.
9:30 tomorrow voting, all right. Anything from our other standing committees? Chair of Finance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet at 9 tomorrow morning for voting.
9 tomorrow morning for Finance. All right, any further? Yes.
Just potentially, depending on how much work we do this afternoon on voting, possibly 9 a.m. voting tomorrow morning. Okay.
Possibly tomorrow
Possibly.
at 9. All right. Anything else? Anything else? All right. We do have a senator from the 44th District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, I wanted to say that I love working in this body, listening to the senator from District 31. I appreciate what he says and how this body has come to really work on what tragedy that we just dealt with. But what I wanted to say was, within hours of the tragedy that we had experienced, some, not anyone in this state, because again, I've seen nothing but everyone coming together, but some have politicized it in an unacceptable way. There's been misinformation and an intention to mislead, and it's been astounding and offensive to me. Even more offensive is that there's this line of commentary where people have blamed this tragedy on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Utah Republican gubernatorial candidate Phil Lyman said that the collapse of the bridge is a result of governors who prioritize diversity over the well-being and security of citizens. A Florida Republican congressional candidate said DEI did this. And there are more comments out there similar to these. They attack our sole black appointees to the Port Authority like Sandy Roberts and Corinthia Barber for their lack of knowledge surrounding the port. They attack Mayor Brandon Scott as a DEI mayor. To falsely equate diversity with a lack of knowledge and our blackness with incompetence is simply a lie. It does not matter to some of these people that the aforementioned were duly appointed or duly elected. Why? Because many of these folks don't believe that me and my colleagues should hold the offices that we hold or even should be voting in the first place. My president, as you know, I attended Johns Hopkins University in the 1990s. There we faced questions about our presence on that campus as if we did not belong there because of affirmative action. Side note, Republican author Alan Fletcher, who was a Nixon appointee, Assistant Secretary of Labor, who was also called the father of affirmative action as he was largely responsible for the revised Philadelphia Plan, so affirmative action was something that came from the Republican Party. Anyway, when I matriculated at Hopkins, I took the same test as everyone else that received the degree that I got. So to be clear, while affirmative action opened the doors, there was no such thing as an affirmative action test. While I was a student at Johns Hopkins University, I served there as the Black Student Union president, and I held a viewing of the 1915 movie Birth of a Nation. I did this because I believe that people need to understand the beliefs that some hold about you. There is an iconic scene as described by the 2015 JSTOR Daily Story where I read, and quote, "In one scene, a room filled with empty desk flickers, and then, thanks to a bit of the movie magic, fills with black men who have been elected to the state legislature. They conduct their business with decorum of a pack of wolves. One man takes off his boot, resting his foot on the desk, but replaces it when he is told that all legislators must wear shoes." I bring this up because what is old is new. Some people did not like Reconstruction policies. Black people's competency was attacked back then as it is being today, as if we do not have to work just as hard as anyone else to achieve the American dream. Mr. President, I cannot tell you how frustrated that I am that these people stain a tragedy that we are all attempting to address with such bigotry. When I'll take my seat, but I want to quote an iconic question, what I believe may actually be a statement. Am I not a man and a brother? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise as a white woman from another part of the state to ask that we please journalize the senator's powerful, important, and inspirational words.
All right, without objection, we will journalize the senator's remarks and request his written statements. Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to let every person in here know that I appreciate not just you, Mr. President, but our governor that has made this personal and has personally not just called me, but called every person and made it a priority as a governor. And has touched me, but touched other people. And every person is important, no matter what race or color you are. And remember, in the eyes of God, we are all the same. There is no person that is different. And I appreciate that more than anything, Mr. President. But I'm here to tell you, I'm joined hand in hand with every person in here, because every person means something to me. You have been kind. You have been generous with your time and your talent, Mr. President. And just because of that, I thank God, and I don't either see anybody different. And I thank you for your kind words, Mr. Senator, and a friend and a Baltimore County brother. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know we've had a very somber debate here, but I wanted to see if in the closing days of March we could also honor a couple of women from Maryland with Women's History Month. So I'm going to share this with you. These are two remarkable Maryland women who have inspired me personally. Elizabeth Ann Seton was the first citizen born in the United States to be given the title saint in 1975. She has had a lasting legacy of education excellence. She was born into a wealthy family in 1774. She went on to marry a successful shipping businessman, but she experienced deep personal tragedy when her husband died at a young age, which left her poor and with 5 children to raise. Despite the great suffering, Elizabeth Ann Seton demonstrated true courage and faith in opening a school in New York to support her children. Her efforts and the impact that she was having on other poor children and their families caught the attention of Archbishop John Carroll, who invited her to Baltimore in 1809 to open a school for girls. Then, with a small band of sisters, Mother Seton moved to Emmitsburg, where she began the Sisters of Charity, and she opened a school for girls, which founded our country's parochial school system, and she established the first American orphanage. Elizabeth Ann Seton accomplished all of this during her 46 years on this earth, and I especially was moved by her life when I visited the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton and her school in Emmitsburg in 2021. Closer to home, I wanted to highlight the accomplishments of Bertha Shepard Atkins from Wycomico County. She was the first woman to hold the senior level post of undersecretary in federal government when President Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed her as Undersecretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in 1958. The common link between Elizabeth Ann Seton and Bertha Shepard Atkins is their leadership and excellence in education. Bertha Atkins began her career as Dean of Women at Western Maryland in 1934, where she served until 1942. She returned to Salisbury, Maryland on the shore in 1946, and like many of us in this chamber, spent years volunteering for local candidates and supporting state and national candidates. I especially appreciate that Bertha Atkins worked for and organized opportunities for more women to be involved in leadership positions. For example, she started a series of breakfasts with the president where Republican women could meet and talk with the president about their concerns and values. These events were one of the inspirations for the establishment of the National Federation of Republican Women's annual conference. Bertha Atkins also focused on the challenges of the elderly and became a leading authority in the field, serving as the executive vice chair of the Older Americans Advisory Committee, and she was later appointed to the chair of the Federal Council on Aging by President Gerald Ford in 1974, where she served until her retirement in 1978. As my parents are in their mid-80s, I especially appreciate her focus on improving the quality of life for our seniors, which included her organization of public hearings across the country on national policy concerns for older women. Thank you for allowing me to share these accomplishments and highlights of the lives of Elizabeth Ann Seton and Bertha Atkins, who continue to inspire my public service. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Thank you for that reflection. Recognizing the Senator from Baltimore County.
Yes, I would like these comments to be journalized.
Without objection, most certainly, if we could get a copy of the remarks, we will journalize them in the record. Thank you very much. Let's recognize the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, I arise again with sad news. Permission to use Senator's name. Senator
may proceed.
For those that don't know, Senator Corderman's father-in-law, Joe Satchett, passed away early this morning. Mr. Satchett was a 50-year employee of the state of Maryland, much of it with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, where he served as the warden for all 3 of the state correctional facilities in Washington County. So, Mr. President, I ask that everyone keep Paul and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Absolutely. And maybe, Senator, if we adjourn in his father-in-law's name this evening? Do we have the name? Okay, wonderful. All right, thank you. We've had some tough hits this session. Life keeps lifing. All right. Any further pieces of business before we conclude today? Yes, Senator from Baltimore City, Chair of the delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Baltimore City delegation will meet very briefly tomorrow morning virtually at 9 o'clock. We have 2 bills to vote on and 1 bill hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. 9 o'clock. All right. Anything else? Anything else? If not, Madam Clerk, quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Friday, March 28th at 11 a.m. in honor of Mr. Paul Satchet.
Excellent. Without a Satchel, excellent.
Yes.
Joe Satchel. Without objection.
Okay, what was the name?
Joe
Satchel. Boy, this is like a telephone game from, yeah, Paul Satchel.
Satchet. We will make sure that it gets right in the notification, and we'll get a message to the family as well. So, without objection, so ordered. Everyone have a safe Thursday. See you tomorrow at 11.